Pay attention to the woman who is walking through an apartment complex parking lot. Her name is Laura Kendricks, 54 years old. A white sedan pulls into the parking area. Laura walks under the lights and heads toward the side entrance of the building. Her boyfriend, Michael Red, 61 years old, appears outside the apartment moments later with a large dark bin, dragging it across the pavement before returning alone. Laura is not seen again. One simple fact sits beneath this scene. Someone in this frame has been brutally murdered. March 12, 2023, Augusta, Georgia, 7:46 p.m. This is where investigators will later trace the final movements of Laura Kendricks, 54 years old, and the actions of the only person with her that night, Michael Red, 61 years old. Laura Kendricks grew up in Rincon, a small town outside Savannah. Friends described her as quiet, dependable, and steady. Someone who worked long hours at a local medical supply warehouse and rarely took time off. She had 2 adult daughters who checked on her regularly, even during stretches when Laura tried to distance herself from the chaos of her on and off relationship with Michael Red. Michael lived a very different life. Born in Birmingham, Alabama, he moved to Georgia in his early 40s and spent years drifting between warehouse jobs and brief contract work. Neighbors from past addresses remembered him as withdrawn, often pacing around late at night. Police records would later show a history of minor disturbances, noise complaints, alcohol-related calls, and a few domestic arguments that never led to formal charges. Laura met Michael in 2020 through a coworker who believed they might be good for each other. For a while, it seemed true. They moved into the apartment complex on Mitchell Avenue together in 2021. But as their relationship progressed, arguments grew more frequent. Laura confided to family that Michael drank heavily and often became confrontational. Still, she stayed. She always believed the situation would stabilize. It didn't. In early March 2023, everything looked ordinary on the surface. Laura's phone showed routine activity, calls to her daughters, texts about work schedules, reminders, and grocery lists. Neighbors saw her walking her dog in the evenings, sometimes with Michael following behind her at a distance. The last confirmed normal day was March 10th. She spoke briefly with her daughter, sounding tired from work but otherwise normal. Nothing hinted at the violence that was coming. 2 days later, she appeared in the parking lot of the apartment complex for the final time on camera. That night became the pivot point for the entire investigation. When Laura's daughters couldn't reach her for 2 days, concern quickly grew. She never went silent for that long. On March 14th, her oldest daughter drove to the Mitchell Avenue apartment, knocked at the door, waited, and got no response. She called repeatedly while standing outside, but nothing happened. She left a note asking her mother to call her immediately and returned home. Over the next 48 hours, there was still no response. On March 17th, she returned with a spare key. The moment she opened the door, she sensed something was wrong. The apartment was cluttered with scattered clothes, unwashed dishes, and a sharp odor hanging in the air. Laura's purse sat on the table. Her phone was on the counter, turned off. Her ID and work badge were untouched. But Laura herself was gone without explanation. Her daughters filed an urgent missing person report later that day. Detectives arrived that evening to search the apartment. They photographed the rooms, collected what they could, and questioned neighbors. Multiple residents reported hearing arguments from the unit in the days before Laura disappeared. One recalled a sudden, heavy thud late at night, followed by dragging sounds. At the time, they assumed it was furniture. Officers attempted to contact Michael Red, but he was not home. Calls to his phone went straight to a disconnected message. Detectives left a card, instructing him to contact them immediately. They then reviewed available surveillance footage from the complex. What they saw confirmed their suspicion. Laura arrived. Michael moved a large bin soon after. Laura never exited. The footage provided the first concrete indication that something serious had happened inside that apartment. In the days that followed, detectives searched for Michael. They contacted his employer, who reported he had stopped showing up for work after March 13th. They checked hospitals, shelters, and prior addresses. Nothing turned up. With enough circumstantial evidence to justify further action, investigators obtained a search warrant for the apartment on March 22nd. Inside, they found cleaning products scattered near the bathroom sink. A section of carpet in the living room had been removed and replaced with an awkward patch of mismatched material. Behind the building, they found a rubber bin similar to the one seen in the footage. Its interior showed discoloration and a faint odor consistent with decomposition. Still, they had no confirmation of what happened. That discovery would come from something far more disturbing. On March 24th, determined to help the investigation, Laura's daughter returned to the apartment complex to look for anything out of place. Near the back of the building, beside a row of trash bins, she noticed freshly disturbed soil. Something pale was visible beneath the top layer of dirt. Terrified, she immediately called detectives. Officers uncovered human remains buried in shallow ground, fragments of bone, parts of a rib, and pieces of tissue. Nearby, they found a torn black construction bag. Later, DNA testing confirmed the remains belonged to Laura Kendricks. The case shifted instantly from a missing person investigation to a homicide. Detectives now had one priority: find Michael Redd. They located him on April 1st, 2023, at a house in North Augusta, staying with a friend. Body-worn cameras from the arrest captured Michael, stepping toward the front door as officers approached. One detective instructed him to keep his hands visible and step toward them. Michael complied quickly, offering little resistance. He was handcuffed, searched, and transported to the county jail. During booking, Michael complained of dizziness and nausea. He was transferred to St. Vincent Medical Center for evaluation, giving detectives an opportunity to question him in a controlled environment. When the interview began, detectives used a calm approach. They asked when he last saw Laura. He claimed she had walked out with a small bag to hitchhike, something he said she always did. Detectives pressed him on the inconsistencies. Her phone was left behind, along with her purse, ID, and essentials. Laura had never vanished for this long. Michael stuck to his story until detectives told him the truth. They had found human bones near the apartment, and they believed the remains belonged to Laura. Michael's demeanor changed instantly. He looked down at his hands and whispered, "I didn't mean for anything bad to happen." Detectives guided him through every detail. They asked about the argument. They asked if Laura had hit him. They asked if he hit her back. Slowly, Michael admitted the confrontation became physical. He claimed he acted in self-defense. He admitted striking her. He claimed she fell and stopped moving. Detectives pushed further, asking what he did next. Michael admitted he panicked. He said he placed her body into a bin because he feared no one would believe him. When asked how the remains ended up outside, he admitted he kept her in the bin for days before placing her in bags and dragging them to the area behind the building at night. Forensic analysis confirmed the truth. The remains matched Laura's DNA. Skull fragments showed signs of blunt force trauma. Blood evidence inside the apartment matched Laura. The cut section of carpet contained traces of blood that had been partially cleaned. The bin found behind the building contained biological material linked to Laura. Witnesses also provided key details. Several neighbors reported hearing arguments, crashes, and shouting from the apartment in the days leading up to her disappearance. One resident recalled seeing Michael dragging an object toward the back of the property late at night. Another saw him walking quickly with a large bin. With forensic evidence, witness statements, surveillance footage, and Michael's own admissions, investigators built a strong case. Michael Redd was indicted on April 11, 2023 on 4 charges: murder, abuse of a corpse, tampering with evidence, and domestic violence. During pretrial hearings, prosecutors argued that the combination of physical evidence and Michael's shifting statements demonstrated both intent and concealment. They emphasized that Laura never left the apartment alive and that Michael's actions after the fact, hiding her remains, cleaning the apartment, dragging bags outside, were inconsistent with any claim of panic or self-defense. At trial, forensic experts testified that Laura's injuries were not consistent with a single fall or accidental impact. Instead, they suggested repeated blunt force trauma. Witnesses described the escalating arguments between the couple. The prosecution presented the surveillance timeline showing Laura entering the complex and never leaving. The defense argued that the death resulted from a sudden, uncontrolled struggle and that Michael acted out of fear afterward. But the jury weighed the evidence carefully. After deliberating for less than 5 hours, they returned with a unanimous verdict, guilty on all counts. During sentencing, the judge addressed Michael directly, stating that the attempts to conceal Laura's death displayed a deliberate effort to obstruct justice and deny her family the truth. Michael was sentenced to life in prison for murder, with additional consecutive sentences for abuse of a corpse, tampering with evidence, and domestic violence. The case is now fully closed. No appeals have overturned the conviction. Laura's daughters continue to live in Savannah, holding yearly gatherings in her memory. For investigators, the case serves as a reminder of how quickly domestic conflict can escalate and how crucial surveillance footage and forensic analysis are when uncovering the truth. And for anyone watching the opening minutes captured in that apartment parking lot, one reality becomes clear. Those quiet movements on screen mark the beginning of a disappearance no one was meant to understand, and the final moments before a crime hidden in darkness came to light. Thanks for watching Undocumented. Every case shown here is inspired by real events, though names, locations, and specific details have been altered or fictionalized for presentation. The message is real. Stay aware. Be careful, subscribe, and hit the like button for more undocumented crimes like this.